Poems to a Listener, readings and conversation with contemporary poets.
Now we are like that flat cone of sand in the garden of the Silver Pavilion in Kyoto, designed to appear only in moonlight. Do you want me to mourn? Do you want me to wear black? Or, like moonlight on whitest sand, to use your dark, to gleam, to shimmer? I gleam, I mourn.
Welcome. I'm Henry Lyman, and in this half-hour program, we'll be visiting with poet Tess Gallagher and listening to poems by her and by her late husband, poet and short fiction writer Raymond Carver. The two of them had just 11 years together, years in which they gleamed both as writers and as partners in life. But at the time they met, Carver hadn't been writing for more than a year.
I said to him one day, I just haven't read anything good in a long time. Write me something good to read, I said. And he started to write. I gave him the extra bedroom and fixed a little desk up for him in there and tried to make it comfortable. And every night, it seemed, I would come home and I would be looking at drafts of the story that he began. And I would read the drafts, tell him what I thought. And he wrote that whole period. I think it was in the fall of the year we were in Tucson, which would have been 1980, I believe.
Well, during your 11 years, his output was tremendous.
Yes, he had about 11 books during that period.
I have the impression, too, that the two of you lived very brightly, very richly, even towards the very end.
Yes, we traveled, we saw friends, we went salmon fishing, we made a sort of European trip together the year before he became ill.
How did it happen? How did it come about at the end there?
Ray actually wrote a poem about our receiving the news from the doctor, and it was called What the Doctor Said. He said, it doesn't look good. He said, it looks bad, in fact, real bad. He said, I counted 32 of them on one lung before I quit counting them. I said, I'm glad. I wouldn't want to know about any more being there than that. He said, are you a religious man? Do you kneel down in forest groves and let yourself ask for help when you come to a waterfall, mist blowing against your face and arms? Do you stop and ask for understanding at those moments? I said, not yet, but I intend to start today. He said, I'm real sorry. He said, I wish I had some other kind of news to give you. I said, amen. And he said something else I didn't catch, and not knowing what else to do, and not wanting him to have to repeat it, and me to have to fully digest it, I just looked at him for a minute, and he looked back. It was then I jumped up and shook hands with this man who'd just given me something no one else on earth had ever given me. I may even have thanked him, habit being so strong.
It's amazing to me that after receiving this news, he could actually jump up and shake the doctor's hands. I'm not saying he's gleeful about it.
Saying, this is the man who's giving me my death.
Mm-hmm.
What is the response to that, you know?
You can't just sit there and...
Habit carries you during those moments, I think is one of the things that
yeah.
gets said there.
So it's almost an expression of gratitude that he's...
It's funny. It's a funny moment, actually, in a very grim poem. And I think there's another funny moment happens when he says, I said amen, you know, after the guy says, I wish I had some other kind of news to give you.
Well, Ray in his writing could be comic in the most grim situations
Yeah.
within the story or the poem.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened after this, after you got the news?
Well, we made some decisions about how we were going to handle the news at large. And we also decided to do something for ourselves, something to celebrate this relationship that we'd had for 11 years. And so we decided to get married. It was exactly the right thing to do. It really lifted our spirits and consolidated our wills and acknowledged the very intimate and committed nature of our relationship.
And celebrated that.
Yes, It was great fun. Gambled and walked about to Reno.
In Reno, so you went
Yes,
to
we
Reno.
went to Reno, yes. Ray said we'll have a high tacky wedding.
In one of those little neon churches.
Yes, right. It was called the Little Heart of Reno Chapel. It was right across from the courthouse. It had white light bulbs all around a heart. This is a poem which does mention some moments which I do remember from that time in Reno. These are not, the happy moments, but these are some moments that sort of catch at your heart a bit. Sad moments. That less than torment you lived so fully, now at least it's possible to make it functional, the way a chopping block becomes a footstool once the heads have rolled. But it doesn't give you rest, his holding the stem of that Japanese maple into the hole and saying, even this thing is going to outlive me. Then tamping the dirt down with both hands, making sure. Or when at the airport in Reno he came back glazed over from blowing all his loose change, yours too. That worse than woeful grin, cocksure in its lastness, so to smile back was the less than answer needed before he said, that's the last slot I'll ever play, I guess. And remembering isn't to cling any more than he did, but to acknowledge no one can die in those moments either. Moments vaulted like a cave with seepage and echo, so they outlive what makes you forget. Those little economies of the blood, which stunt the attention until the scent of lilac or pitch gets manageable again, and we are fit for modulation and whim, for cloves and lace, or that dim creaturely train rushing past us with one darkened car where nothing but applause can be heard, and not to know what it's for, or if its black intoxication will somehow empty out those raw strips of night, freshen them so someone later can lie down for a while, vulnerable as he was, milder at the end than sleep.
He was quite a gambler, Ray was, wasn't he?
He loved to gamble. We used to go to the dog races when I first knew him. We would drive over into Mexico, into Juarez, and we played roulette. And in fact, on our honeymoon, I got into an amazing winning streak. I think I won something like $600 altogether. And I won 300 of it in the last few minutes before we left. I told Ray, I'm going to go back and I'm going to place a bet and I'm going to win.
What did you bet on?
I bet on number 24 on the roulette. It was 35 to 1. And I said, come with me, I want you to watch this. And he had all our wedding flowers in his arms and standing out in front waiting for the bus. He said, no, you go ahead. You go ahead and come back quickly, he said, because we're going to miss our bus to the airport. So I went and I found a roulette table. There were many to choose from. I just walked up to one, plunked my money down, and this guy said, "That's the number, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the number." And it came around, and that was the number. And I won, this huge amount of money for me just
Wonderful.
on one number. And I didn't even have my purse with me. I changed my chips in for cash and was running through the casino with this fists full of cash. And Ray saw me coming. He just started to beam, And I said, "Just forget that bus." I said, "We're taking a taxi."
Ah,
Yeah, and we just got in the taxi and roared away and made our plane. This is one of the later poems in Ray's last book, in which he looks at a photograph that he finds in his drawer. Afterglow. The dusk of evening comes on. Earlier a little rain had fallen. You open a drawer and find inside the man's photograph, knowing he has only 2 years to live. He doesn't know this, of course. That's why he can mug for the camera. How could he know what's taking root in his head at that moment? If one looks to the right, through boughs and tree trunks, there can be seen crimson patches of the afterglow. No shadows, no half-shadows. It is still and damp. The man goes on mugging. I put the picture back in its place along with the others, and give my attention instead to the afterglow along the far ridge, light golden on the roses in the garden. Then I can't help myself. I glance once more at the picture, the wink, the broad smile, the jaunty slant of the cigarette.
that jaunty slant of the cigarette. It seems to portray a very essential quality in Ray, as I see him through your work and through his, a jauntiness, a somewhat devil-may-care attitude.
It's as if nothing could happen to this man, as if he had the world by the tail.
Yeah. Which he probably thought at that time in the picture. But
Yes.
the person looking at the picture
Right.
knows that he is desperately ill.
Yeah, it's a very ironic poem.
And then there's that afterglow
Yes.
in the photograph that he's looking at, but also by the roses in the garden.
Outside.
The
It's a
gleam of
particular way in which the light is still lasting even after it's gone.
The afterglow remains. To introduce a lighter note, there's a poem of Ray's in his last book, which always gives me a giggle. The Toes. I was wondering if you could do that one.
Yes. The toes. This foot's giving me nothing but trouble. The ball, the arch, the ankle. I'm saying it hurts to walk. But mainly it's these toes I worry about. Those terminal digits, as they're otherwise called. How true. For them no more delight in going head first into a hot bath or a cashmere sock. Cashmere socks, no socks, slippers, shoes, ace bandage, it's all one and the same to these dumb toes. They even looked zonked out and depressed, as if somebody'd pumped them full of thorazine. They hunch there, stunned and mute, drab, lifeless things. What in hell is going on? What kind of toes are these, that nothing matters any longer? Are these really my toes? Have they forgotten the old days, what it was like being alive then? Always first on line, first onto the dance floor when the music started, first to kick up their heels. Look at them. No, don't. You don't want to see them, those slugs. It's only with pain and difficulty they can recall the other times, the good times. Maybe what they really want is to sever all connection with the old life, start over, go underground, live alone in a retirement manor somewhere in the Yakima Valley. But there was a time they used to strain with anticipation, simply curl with pleasure at the least provocation, the smallest thing, the feel of a silk dress against the fingers, say, a becoming voice, a touch behind the neck, even a passing glance, any of it. The sound of hooks being unfastened, stays coming undone, garments letting go onto a cool hardwood floor.
There's a whole life almost portrayed by way of the toes. It starts off now, in the present, the older, tired toes.
Terminal digits.
Terminal digits, yeah, which is ironic. And then goes back to youth, younger days.
Yes.
Always first on the line,
Yes.
first onto the dance floor.
Nostalgic for that sensuality, as if they've somehow become stunted, and as if he can't really believe that they belong to him anymore. It's as if they have almost developed a separate life of their own.
And they do in the poem.
Yeah.
Because it's the toes that have experienced these things. And that's the beauty of it. Of course, you see him, but the beauty of it is that it's done through the toes, which portray the whole scene. It's the toes that are stretching at the end, that are listening to the garments letting go on that cool hardwood floor. Because you have comic poems yourself.
Yes, I have a poem entitled The Hug. He loved this poem. The Hug. A woman is reading a poem on the street, and another woman stops to listen. We stop too, with our arms around each other. The poem is being read and listened to out here in the open. Behind us, no one is entering or leaving the houses. Suddenly, a hug comes over me, and I'm giving it to you like a variable star shooting light off to make itself comfortable, then subsiding. I finish, but keep on holding you. A man walks up to us, and we know he hasn't come out of nowhere, but if he could, he would have. He looks homeless because of how he needs. Can I have one of those, he asks you, and I feel you nod. I'm surprised you don't tell him how it is, that I'm yours, only yours, etc., exclusive as a nose to its face. Love, that's what we're talking about, love that nabs you with, for me only, and holds on. So I walk over to him and put my arms around him and try to hug him like I mean it. He's got an overcoat on so thick I can't feel him past it. I'm starting the hug and thinking, how big a hug is this supposed to be? How long shall I hold this hug? Already we could be eternal. His arms falling over my shoulders, my hands not meeting behind his back. He is so big. I put my head into his chest and snuggle in. I lean into him. I lean my blood and my wishes into him. He stands for it. This is his, and he's starting to give it back so well I know he's getting it, this hug. So truly, so tenderly, we stop having arms, and I don't know if my lover has walked away or what, or if the woman is still reading the poem, or the houses. What about them? The houses. Clearly a little permission is a dangerous thing, but when you hug someone, you want it to be a masterpiece of connection, the way the button on his coat will leave the imprint of a planet in my cheek when I walk away, when I try to find some place to go back to.
This hug, which is given by you, by the speaker, to a perfect stranger, reaches out through him to everything. The two of you become eternal.
Yes,
But
it
that's a
stops
hint.
the moment.
Yeah, that's a hint that this is something bigger than just between two people. Also, you hug so tenderly that you stop having arms.
Yes,
Of course,
you
he's
really
a
just go into
corpulent fellow, but also it's again the suggestion that this hug seems to be extending itself outwards to embrace totality.
The hug takes over. The act
Yeah.
of hugging then begins to dissolve all the barriers between strangers, really.
And it leaves the button on the coat leaves the imprint of a planet.
Yes, it was a
On your
great
cheek.
moment when I hit that.
It's another indication too that it's a cosmic hug. Mm-hmm. A cosmic hug.
This poem was written, by the way, long before, have you hugged your teddy bear today, or have you hugged, those hug bumper stickers, or
Hug a poet.
right. Before all of that developed, maybe this poem started it. Who knows? I can dream. I'd like to read a poem from Ray's early poems, Woman Bathing. Natchez River, just below the falls, 20 miles from any town. A day of dense sunlight, heavy with odors of love. How long have we? Already your body, sharpness of Picasso, is drying in this highland air. I towel down your back, your hips, with my undershirt. Time is a mountain lion. We laugh at nothing, and as I touch your breasts, even the ground squirrels are dazzled.
Even the squirrels are amazed, dazzled by the two of them. It is as if the whole world stands dazzled and amazed by.
Yeah, and then you
by
have
what it sees.
that rather stark question, which was asked so long ago, how long have we? Which now, as we read it in the context of this being his last book, takes on another dimension. I think Ray was always trying that, taking the early work and putting it together with later work, and by doing that, really bringing another dimension.
Yeah, it's a foreshadowing.
Yes.
How long have we? A premonition of what happened.
How long is this relationship going to last, even maybe? And then, if you read it in context of our relationship, how long have we together before I go?
And he sees himself going, actually leaving in a poem that he wrote towards the end.
In fact, he reenacts it prior to his death. I mean, he sort of tries out what the farewell is going to be like. No need. I see an empty place at the table. Whose? Who else's? Who am I kidding? The boat's waiting. No need for oars or wind. I've left the key in the same place, you know where. Remember me and all we did together. Now hold me tight. That's it. Kiss me hard on the lips. There. Now let me go, my dearest. Let me go. We shall not meet again in this life, so kiss me goodbye now. Here, kiss me again. Once more. There. That's enough. Now, my dearest, let me go. It's time to be on the way. What happens in the poem, these 3 kisses that were exchanged really did happen in our own parting on the night before Ray died. I didn't really realize it until after his death when I was putting the book together and I reread the poem. And I thought, oh, how strange, really. Because I followed these almost as if they were instructions.
As if he was asking you to do that. Or...
Yes, and I did have to let him go. And I was very conscious that I'm having to let him go. Red poppy. That linkage of warnings sent a tremor through June, as if to prepare October in the hardest apples. 1 week in late July we held hands like holding hearts through the bars of his hospital bed. Our sleep made a canopy over us, and it seemed I heard its durable roaring in the companion sleep of what must have been our Bedouin god. And now, when the poppy lets go, I know it is to lay bare his thickly seeded black coach at the pinnacle of dying. My shaggy ponies heard the shallow snapping of silk, but grazed on down the hillside, their little prayer flags tearing at the void, what we stared into, its cool flux of blue and white. How just shaking at flies they sprinkled the air with the soft unconscious praise of bells braided into their manes. My life simplified too for him, and his thinned like an injection wearing off, so the real gave way to the more than real. Each moment's carmine abundance, furl of reddest petals lifted from the stalk, and no hint of the black hussar's hat at the center. By then his breathing stopped so gradually I had to brush lips to know an ending. Tasting then that plush of scarlet, which is the last of warmth, kissless kiss he would have given, mine to extend a lover's right past its radius, to give, and also most needfully my gallant hussar to bend and take. I gave Ray morphine at the end for the pain. And
so that relates to Poppy.
Yeah, and you have these images of almost gypsy caravans, as if everything were portable.
And you were both gypsies.
Yes.
The attitude that you had, I think,
yes.
towards life. A kind
right.
of gypsy-like, I think I used the term devil-may-care, a certain
yeah,
gambling, jaunty recklessness.
That's right. Let's go. That was our motto.
And a great sense of humor.
Yeah, I think one of the things I miss the most is how we used to make each other laugh. And Ray used to say, if you haven't heard a good story, that's really made you laugh, you really haven't lived.
We've been visiting with poet Tess Gallagher and listening to poems from Amplitude and Moon Crossing Bridge, both published by Grey Wolf, and poems by her late husband Raymond Carver from his book A New Path to the Waterfall, published by Atlantic Monthly Press. I'm Henry Lyman. Thanks for being with us.
Poems to a Listener was produced by Henry Lyman in cooperation with WFCR, Amherst, Massachusetts. This program was supported by the Witter Binner Foundation for Poetry and the National Endowment for the Arts.